G'day guys, JB here with the off-season finally upon us and another 82-game season finally out of the way with no COVID hiccups, with no bubble, a full 82 games. I think it's time that I release formally my 50 greatest NBA players of all time. Some of you will agree, some of you will disagree, some will be surprised by some rankings, some won't be so surprised by some rankings, but I think you'll enjoy it. So sit back, relax, if you can in fact relax listening to lists and the sounds of my voice, and get ready for my 50 greatest NBA players of all time. At number 40, Clyde Drexler. Played 1983-84 to 1997-98. One-time champion, one-time All-NBA first-team selection, two-time All-NBA second-team selection, two-time All-NBA third-team selection, 10-time All-Star selection. Finished top 10 in MVP voting 4 times, top 5 in MVP voting twice, and was a one-time runner-up MVP. In the regular season, he played 1,086 games, averaging 34.6 minutes per game. He averaged 20.4 points per game, 6.1 rebounds per game, 5.6 assists per game, 2 steals per game, 0.7 blocks per game, and 2.7 turnovers per game. He shot 47.2% from the field, 31.8% from 3, and 78.8% from the free throw line. In the playoffs, he played 145 games, averaging 38.4 minutes per game. He averaged 20.4 points per game, 6.9 rebounds per game, 6.1 assists per game, 1.9 steals per game, 0.7 blocks per game, and 2.7 turnovers per game. He shot 44.7% from the field, 28.8% from 3, and 78.7% from the free throw line. In the NBA Finals, he played 15 games, averaging 40.3 minutes per game. He averaged 24.5 points per game, 8.3 rebounds per game, 6 assists per game, 1.4 steals per game, 0.5 blocks per game, and 2.7 turnovers per game. He shot 46.3% from the field, 15.6% from deep, and 82.4% from the stripe. As fans of the game of basketball, we marvel at the great moments, the great teams, and the great names of each era, and understandably so. It is these great moments, these great teams, and these great players that are the first and foremost at the front of everyone's mind and define the timeline of the NBA. But what about the moments, the teams, and the players who are otherwise lost to history? There may be no better example of this than Clyde Drexler. Overshadowed by the gigantic shadow cast by Michael Jordan, Drexler was by far the second best shooting guard of his era, a freak athlete, and a two-way player that proved pivotal on every team he played for. At 6'7", with athletic ability to rival any shooting guard ever, Clyde Drexler brought a body type that saw him as one of the hardest perimeter matchups of his generation. A genuine threat on both ends of the floor saw him develop into the leader of the Trailblazers by his third season and remain a perennial all-star for a decade. Offensively, Drexler could attack the rim from any situation on the floor, earning the nickname Clyde the Glide in college next to Hakeem Olajuwon of the Houston Cougars and carrying it through his NBA career. While not a reliable jump shooter, his ability to hit an open shot made him accountable on the defense, even putting him in conversations as the best player in the league due to his rounded offensive game. Drexler's career averages in points, rebounds, assists, steals, and field goal percentage have become the yardstick for nearly every all-time great shooting guard. The ability to get on the glass, a willingness to pass when required, an ability defensively either on ball or in help defense to assist, and the ability to score efficiently. Drexler delivered in these areas as well as anyone before him or after him. Drafted in the 1983 NBA draft at number 14 from Houston, Drexler would by far and away finish as the greatest player of his class despite losing out on Rookie of the Year honours to Ralph Sampson. While not an immediate success, Drexler would learn under veterans Jim Paxson and Calvin Natt on how to adapt to the league as well as harness his talents as the leader of the team, starting in only 3 of the 82 games he played. With the famous selection of Sam Bowie joining the team in 1984, Drexler's minutes would grow as well as his role on the team, and by the following season would be an all-star and the clear player the franchise was going to build around. Drexler would not assume the role as the clear-cut number one option on the team until 1987-88, when Kiki Vanderway suffered a back injury and would manage just one game in the starting lineup of the 37 he would play in that season. Drexler capitalised on the opportunity, finishing 5th in MVP voting and earning All-NBA second-team honours, missing the first team thanks to Michael Jordan. This would be a reoccurring theme for the majority of Drexler's career. Portland would win 53 games for the year, their first 50-win season since the franchise's only championship season of 1976-77. With Drexler at the helm, the Blazers were able to grow from perennial first-round team into a genuine Western Conference contender. After back-to-back first-round defeats in the 1988 and 89 playoffs, Portland would acquire Rick Adelman as coach, and by the end of 1989-90, would post a franchise record 59 wins. Drexler would play a career-low 73 games for the season and see his scoring numbers dip, but still managed to find himself on the All-NBA third team as the Trailblazers finished second in the Western Conference. While his form was below par throughout the first 3 rounds of the playoffs, Portland would advance to the NBA Finals, where they would fall in 5 games to Detroit. Drexler stood up as the team's best player of the series and rejuvenated himself from earlier disappointing performances. Favoured to make the NBA Finals again the following year, Portland would set another franchise record with 63 wins as the best team in the NBA. However, despite a 6th-place MVP finish and All-NBA second-team selection, Drexler's scoring would drop to its lowest since 1985-86. His playoff performances also slumped as the postseason progressed, seeing Portland eliminated in the conference finals by the Lakers. The following season, however, would be the best year of Drexler's career. All-NBA first-team selection and runner-up MVP to go with the best playoff run of his career saw Drexler lead Portland back to the finals to face the Chicago Bulls, led by Michael Jordan. Jordan and Drexler finished first and second in MVP voting that season, with many contesting Drexler to be Jordan's equal. This contest lasted until half-time of Game 1, when Jordan all but shut down the conversation. Going down in 6 games, this would be the last time that Portland would make a major play at a championship with Drexler as the man. Seeing first-round exits in the 1993-94 playoffs, Drexler would be traded mid-season in 94-95 to the Houston Rockets, where he would go on to contribute alongside Hakeem Olajuwon to Houston's second consecutive championship in one of the most unlikely championship runs in league history. By no means the best player on the team anymore, Drexler was able to go about his natural game with little to no pressure while posting great second-option numbers and being a major player in championship success. Drexler will play the rest of his career with the Rockets, retiring at the end of the 1997-98 season. Clyde Drexler is a member of the Basketball Hall of Fame, was selected to both the NBA's 50th and 75th anniversary teams, and his number 22 is retired in both Portland and Houston. At number 39, Bob McAdoo, played 1972-73 to 1985-86. 2-time NBA champion, 1-time league MVP, 1-time All-NBA first-team selection, 1-time All-NBA second-team selection, 5-time All-Star selection, 3-time scoring champion, Rookie of the Year, and All-Rookie first-team member. McAdoo finished top 10 in MVP voting 4 times, was a 2-time MVP runner-up, and of course won an MVP award. In the regular season, he played 852 games, averaging 33.2 minutes per game. He averaged 22.1 points per game, 9.4 rebounds per game, 2.3 assists per game, 1 steal per game, and 1.5 blocks per game, 2.6 turnovers per game. He shot 50.3% from the field. He shot 8.1% from deep, played limited years with the three-point line, and shot 75.4% from the free throw line. In the playoffs, he played 94 games, averaged 28.9 minutes per game. He averaged 18.3 points per game, 7.6 rebounds per game, 1.4 assists per game, 0.8 steals per game, 1.6 blocks per game, and 2 turnovers per game. He shot 49.1% from the field. He shot 25% from deep, again with limited time with the three-point line, and 72.4% from the free throw line. In the NBA Finals, he played 20 games, averaging 23.5 minutes per game. He averaged 12.2 points per game, 4.8 rebounds per game, 0.8 assists per game, 0.7 steals per game, 1.4 blocks per game, on 2.2 turnovers per game. He shot 46.9% from the field. He shot 50% from the three-point line, again with limited time with the three-point line and 67.7% from the free throw line. If you mention Bob McAdoo to any modern basketball fan, they are likely going to tell you that he was either a bench warmer for the Showtime Lakers or a member of the Miami Heat coaching staff for around a quarter of a century. What they are likely not going to tell you is that in his prime he was arguably the best player in the world and so dominant at his peak that he would win scoring titles and MVP awards right in the middle of the peak of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Yes, McAdoo was that good. A prototypical stretch power forward by modern measurements, McAdoo at his peak proved as reliable as any superstar to ever play in the league on both ends of the floor. While his career saw him garner the ultimate success in a lesser role towards the end of his career, McAdoo proved that playing your role to the best of your ability, no matter what that role is, will deliver you the success you deserve. Second overall pick in the 1972 NBA draft, McAdoo entered the NBA and made an immediate impact. Playing next to Elmore Smith and Randy Smith, two defensive specialists, McAdoo was able to utilise his offensive skill set to average 18 points per game en route to Rookie of the Year honours. Buffalo would win just 21 games, but McAdoo showed enough with his limited looks that he was going to change the fortunes of the franchise very soon. At 6'9", McAdoo, as an undersized centre, could play down low with similar-sized big men, but generally drew the defence out to stretch the floor and capitalised on a lethal mid-range game. Rebounding always comes with the position of centre, but his ability at 6'9" was tremendous, peaking out at 15.1 rebounds per game in his sophomore season. Not a known passer, the stretched nature of his offensive game saw his assist numbers grow and passing game develop across the years to get his teammates involved. Defensively, McAdoo was a committed on-ball defender and displayed a solid ability to block shots. By his second season, McAdoo was the league's leading scorer and had turned the Buffalo Braves into a 500 team. Leading the league in points per game at 30.6 points and field goal percentage at 54.7%, McAdoo would finish runner-up MVP to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and find himself on the All-NBA second team in one of the best single-season turnarounds by a franchise in history. While there have been teams who have won more games from season to season, few teams have seen a player take such a giant leap towards superstardom in the way that McAdoo did from his rookie to sophomore season. Improving by 21 games, Buffalo, under the guidance of McAdoo, would meet the eventual NBA champion Boston Celtics, going down in 6 games. McAdoo would find himself on the winning end of the matchup with former MVP and future Hall of Fame centre Dave Cowens, posting 31.7 points per game and 13.7 rebounds per game on 47.8% from the field, compared to Cowens' 19.2 points per game and 16 rebounds per game on 41.4% from the field. As if his second season wasn't enough, McAdoo in his third season will be just as good, if not better, posting a league-leading and career-high 34.5 points per game and leading Buffalo to a franchise record 49 wins. McAdoo would walk away with All-NBA first-team honours and the league's MVP award, one of the most unique MVP wins throughout league history. The Buffalo team record of 49 wins would stand as the franchise record for the Buffalo Braves, San Diego Clipper, Los Angeles Clippers lineage for 38 years until Chris Paul and Blake Griffin guided the 2012-13 Los Angeles Clippers to 56 wins. Once again, the Braves would make it to the playoffs. However, the depth of the Washington Bullets, featuring Wes Unseld, Elvin Hayes, Phil Chenier and Kevin Porter, proved too much to overcome as they went down in 7 games. McAdoo wouldn't go down without a fight though, posting 37.4 points per game and 13.4 rebounds per game on 48.4% from the field and proving to be the best big in the series. McAdoo would cap off a sensational 3-year run with a third scoring title in 1974-75, averaging 31.1 points per game as the Braves once again saw themselves in the playoffs. But once again, the second time in 3 years, McAdoo and the Braves would go down to the eventual NBA champion Boston Celtics, this time of Dave Cowens, JoJo White and John Havlicek. This time, Cowens would see the better of McAdoo, averaging 24.5 points and 17.8 rebounds and 5.7 assists per game, compared to McAdoo, who posted 26.8 points per game, 12 rebounds per game and 2.7 assists per game. This would be the last time Buffalo would see the playoffs until the Los Angeles Clippers made it in 1991-92, with McAdoo being traded to New York the following season after just 20 games. After one final All-Star season with New York, which saw the Knicks swept in the second round of the playoffs by Julius Erving, Philadelphia 76ers, McAdoo would find himself bouncing around the league until he found himself cast into the Showtime Lakers. While once battling Kareem Abdul-Jabbar for scoring titles and MVP awards, McAdoo now found himself as backup to the captain of the team in one of the first great examples of what a six-man could truly bring to a team. Not posting those all-time numbers of a previous era gone by, McAdoo's pinch-hitting ability to score the ball in his limited minutes proved pivotal for the Lakers, helping them to championship success in 1982 against Philadelphia and again in 1985 against Boston. McAdoo would call time in his career after a brief stint for Philadelphia behind Moses Malone in 1985-86, retiring as one of the most underrated all-time greats to ever play the game. Bob McAdoo is a member of the Basketball Hall of Fame and was selected to the NBA's 75th anniversary team. At number 38, John Stockton. Played 1984-85 to 2002-03. Two-time All-NBA first-team selection, six-time All-NBA second-team selection, three-time All-NBA third-team selection, five-time All-Defensive second-team selection, 10-time All-Star selection, two-time All-Star MVP, nine-time assist champion, two-time steals champion. Stockton finished top 10 in MVP voting 5 times. In the regular season, he played 1,504 games, averaging 31.8 minutes per game. He averaged 13.1 points per game, 2.7 rebounds per game, 10.5 assists per game, 2.2 steals per game, 0.2 blocks per game, and 2.8 turnovers per game. He shot 51.5% from the field, 38.4% from deep, and 82.6% from the free throw line. In the playoffs, he played 182 games, averaging 35.2 minutes per game. He averaged 13.4 points per game, 3.3 rebounds per game, 10.1 assists per game, 1.9 steals per game, 0.3 blocks per game, 2.8 turnovers per game. He shot 47.3% from the field, 32.6% from three, and 81% from the free throw line. In the NBA Finals, he played 12 games, averaging 34.9 minutes per game. He averaged 12.3 points per game, 3.3 rebounds per game, 8.8 assists per game, 2 steals per game, 0.3 blocks per game, and 3.4 turnovers per game. He shot 49.5% from the field, 33.3% from three, and 81.1% from the free throw line. The term pure in basketball is almost a term from a bygone era. In the modern game, many believe that basketball has become positionless, with players of varying sizes and skill sets playing all over the floor to make lineups work no matter who is on the floor. However, before the revolution of small ball and the reliance of 3-and-D basketball, players would stick to their main position and play strict roles on both ends of the floor for their team to function and gain success. Whether it was terms such as pure big man or pure scorer, players were regularly described for their ability to master their role on a team and set the standard across the league. A pure point guard was regarded as the lead facilitator on a team, a handy defensive player, and a player who could contribute a little on the scoreboard. And no player epitomises this better throughout league history than John Stockton. One of the most durable players in league history, Stockton would pass and steal his way into history across 19 seasons with the Utah Jazz and cement himself as a blueprint for all point guards to build their game around. At 6'1", John Stockton would compile a career of fundamentals and basics mixed in with unbelievable health and retire as one of the standard bearers to look at as far as what is required as both a superstar and franchise building block. Offensively, Stockton proved to be an efficient scoring option when called upon. In his 9 straight All-Star seasons between 1987-88 and 1996-97, he was able to average 15.6 points per game on 52.4% from the field and 39.2% from beyond the arc. Rebounding clearly was not at the top of his priority list, but why would it be next to the likes of Karl Malone and Mark Eaton? His ability to pass in any situation, but particularly in the pick and roll with Malone, is unquestioned. As a duo, Stockton and Malone played 1,412 games together, so to garner a fair judgment on how they would have fared had they not played with each other is pure speculation. Stockton is the all-time leader in assists, sits second to Magic Johnson for career assists per game, is the only other person alongside Magic Johnson to average 10 assists per game for a career, holds the single-season record for total assists and assists per game, and multiple other positions inside the top 10 of each category, holds the second, third and fourth positions as far as single game assists is concerned, sits third all-time in career playoff assists, is tied with Magic Johnson for the most assists in a playoff game, and sits second to Magic Johnson for career playoff assists per game. Such is Stockton's dominance in the assist department in the regular season, he could have retired at the end of the 1996-97 season and still be the all-time leader in assists. He would play a further 442 games after this. For more perspective, his lead on Jason Kidd for the all-time assist record, which is 3,715 assists, is greater than the career assist total of Derrick Rose, 3,646, to the end of the 2021-22 season. And let us not forget about his ability defensively. Stockton averaged 2.2 steals for his career, posting a grand total of 3,265 thefts in his 1,504 game career. Going at 2 steals or more a game for 11 seasons, 2.5 steals a game for 5 straight years, posting 3 steals a game in 3 different seasons, Stockton finished his career as the all-time leader in thefts. He sits atop the career steals total by a margin of 581, a margin so great that the difference between second place Jason Kidd and 12th place Alvin Robinson is 572. Had Stockton retired after the lockout season of 1999, he would still be the all-time leader in steals. Stockton played a further 328 games after this. Stockton was drafted from relative obscurity in the famous 1984 NBA draft and would take a couple of seasons before he would establish himself as the best option to run the Utah Jazz. Playing behind the likes of Ricky Green, coach Frank Layden would keep Stockton on the bench to earn his minutes. However, as evident chemistry with the team's new number 1 option Karl Malone developed and the flow of the team was going to be based around their success, Stockton was bumped into the starting 5 in 1987-88, seeing him bolster his numbers to an All-NBA second-team selection and a 7-game second-round loss to the eventual champion Los Angeles Lakers. Stockton in the series would post 19.3 points, 16.4 assists, and 4 steals a game to objectively outplay Magic Johnson when Magic was considered the best player in the world. This would be the start of the Utah Jazz as one of the leading Western Conference contenders to the end of the 20th century. With Jerry Sloan taking over from Frank Layden just 17 games in the 1988-89 season, the Jazz had their identity in Stockton, Malone and Sloan set in an enduring image of what would be the NBA in the 1990s. Over the next 10 years, the Jazz would finish with a 50-win record 9 times, including 3 separate seasons of 60 wins or more. While making the NBA Finals in both 1997 and 1998, the Jazz would also see 3 different conference finals appearances, a semi-finals appearance and multiple first-round exits. In one of the most stacked periods of NBA history, Stockton as a guard would run into Mitch Richmond, Kevin Johnson, Terry Porter, Clyde Drexler in back-to-back seasons, and again in 1995 with Drexler at the Rockets, Gary Payton and Michael Jordan in back-to-back final series. Despite not achieving the ultimate success, John Stockton is a member of the Basketball Hall of Fame, was selected to both the NBA's 50th and 75th anniversary teams, and his number 12 is retired by the Utah Jazz. At number 37, Walt Frazier, played 1967-68 to 1979-80. 2-time NBA champion, 4-time All-NBA first-team selection, 2-time All-NBA second-team selection, 7-time All-Defensive first-team selection, 7-time All-Star selection, 1-time All-Star MVP, All-Rookie first-team selection. Frazier finished top 10 in MVP voting 3 times and top 5 in MVP voting once. In the regular season, he played 825 games, averaging 37.5 minutes per game. He averaged 18.9 points per game, 5.9 rebounds per game, 6.1 assists per game, 1.9 steals per game, 0.2 blocks per game, 2.1 turnovers per game. He shot 49% from the field. He did not make a 3-point attempt in his career, as the 3-point line only existed in his final season, and he shot 78.6% from the free throw line. In the playoffs, he played 93 games, averaging 42.5 minutes per game. He averaged 20.7 points per game, 7.2 rebounds per game, 6.4 assists per game, 2.1 steals per game, 0.3 blocks per game. Turnovers were not able to be accounted for in the playoffs. He shot 51.1% from the field. He did not attempt a 3-point shot in his playoff career and shot 75.1% from the free throw line. In the NBA Finals, he played 17 games, averaging 44.6 minutes per game. He averaged 18.9 points per game, 7.5 rebounds per game, 8.2 assists per game. Defensive stats were not accountable, nor were turnovers during his NBA Finals career. He shot 53.8% from the field. There was no three-point line in his NBA Finals career, and shot 72.4% from the free throw line. There may be no player that is more underrated as a guard than Walt Clyde Frazier. As one of the best examples of both substance and style, Frazier delivered a playing career that is still talked about in the annals of New York basketball history, helping to immortalise the 1970 and 1973 New York Knicks amongst the best teams ever. Known as Clyde for his fashion sense off the court, in a close resemblance to Bonnie and Clyde, Frazier was as slick on the floor as he was off it, dominating both the regular season and the playoffs with efficient all-around play. Likely one of the 5 best defensive point guards in NBA history, Frazier's time in New York came to a screaming halt on the court, but continues off it as the colour commentator of Knicks games for the better part of 45 years. At 6'4", Frazier was a standard-sized guard in any era, but his wingspan and ability to dominate the defensive end made him a unique matchup. A tenacious on-ball defender and lethal off-ball assailant, Frazier only had steal statistics available in the last 359 games of his career and still managed 1.9 steals per contest. While some argue that defensive numbers in previous eras wouldn't have been too much different from what we see today, it should be noted that in the 1973-74 and 1974-75 seasons, Frazier recorded at least 23 games of 3 steals, or 40.3% of all available games with data, which is a total of 57. In comparison, Deontay Murray recorded 3 steals in 26 of 68 games, or 38.2% of his games, in 2021-22, and Jimmy Butler recorded 3 steals in 18 of his 52 games, or 34.6% of games, in 2020-21. While his defensive numbers speak volumes, his all-around numbers on the offensive end speak of a guard who had the ability to impact the game in more ways than one. Not that it was an issue for Frazier, who averaged just shy of 19 points a game for his career on 49% from the field. Across his 7 straight All-Star seasons, Frazier averaged 21.2 points per game, 6.6 rebounds per game, and 6.5 assists per game on 49.3% from the field. One can only imagine if in all 7 seasons that defensive numbers were available, what it would have looked like. Frazier's rookie season came in the 1967-68 season, playing reserve minutes for a 43-win Knicks team that finished 3rd in the Eastern Division. Not making too much noise, they would be eliminated at the hands of Philadelphia, led by 3-peating MVP Wilt Chamberlain. Stepping up his role the following year into a starting position, Frazier would clearly outline his intent as one of the perennial two-way guards of the league, as efficient scoring combined with solid rebounding, facilitation and defence saw him help the Knicks to a then franchise record 54 wins en route to all-defensive first-team selection. Upsetting the first-seed Baltimore Bullets in the first round, Frazier would dominate the battle of the guards, holding future teammate Earl the Pearl Monroe to 38.6% shooting as he himself posted 20.5 points, 6.8 rebounds and 12.8 assists on 56.1% shooting from the field per game. The Knicks would then fall to that Celtics team in 6 games to fall short of the NBA Finals, but Frazier would again prove to be a headache as he held Sam Jones to 14.5 points per game on 35% shooting from the field, whilst posting himself 21.7 points per game, 7.8 rebounds per game and 6.7 assists per game on 51.4% shooting. Frazier had made a statement and would cement his standing in the game the following year. The 1969-70 New York Knicks are arguably the most beloved single-season New York sports team of all time, and the performance of Walt Frazier in Game 7 of the Finals against the Los Angeles Lakers is one of the big reasons for this. Frazier's season was tremendous. 2nd in scoring, 3rd in rebounding, 2nd in assists, and leading the team in shooting percentage, Clyde was the perfect second hand to the Bonnie that was the league MVP Willis Reed, as the Knicks again set a franchise record for wins with 60 for the season. The hardest part was yet to come in one of the toughest roads to a championship of all time. The 7-game first-round win against the Baltimore Bullets of Wes Unseld saw Frazier up against Gus Johnson and Earl Monroe. A gentleman's sweep against the Milwaukee Bucks of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and then a mammoth 7-game battle against the Los Angeles Lakers and their big three of Wilt Chamberlain, Jerry West and Elgin Baylor. Frazier's finest performance would come in Game 7 of the Finals, as he stepped up for the injured Willis Reed. 36 points, 7 rebounds, 19 assists on 70.6% from the field as the Knicks secured their first ever NBA title. The Knicks would lose out to the Baltimore Bullets in the conference finals of 1970-71 and suffer defeat to the Lakers in the 1971-72 NBA finals before returning to championship glory in 1972-73 as Frazier assumed leadership of the team. Averaging 21.1 points, 7.3 rebounds and 5.9 assists, Frazier would lead the team in points and assists and finish third in rebounding and shooting percentage as age and injury limited Willis Reed in the regular season. Coasting through the first round against Baltimore and then fighting a tough 7-game series in the conference finals against Boston, the Knicks would win their second title in 5 games as a spread of providers showed the way. The Knicks would see one more deep playoff run during Frazier's career as he continued to be a force around the league. To everyone's shock though, Frazier would be traded at the end of the 1976-77 season to Cleveland, where he would play just 66 games in his last 3 seasons before retiring. Walt Frazier is a member of the Basketball Hall of Fame, was selected to both the NBA's 50th and 75th anniversary teams, and his number 10 is retired by the New York Knicks. At number 36, Gary Payton, played 1990-91 to 2006-7. Payton's a 1-time NBA champion, 1-time Defensive Player of the Year winner, 2 All-NBA first-team selections, 5 All-NBA second-team selections, 2 All-NBA third-team selections, 9 All-Defensive first-team selections, 9 All-Star selections, and 1-time Steals champion. He finished top 10 in MVP voting 8 times and top 3 in MVP voting once. In the regular season, he played 1,335 games, averaging 35.3 minutes per game. He averaged 16.3 points per game, 3.9 rebounds per game, 6.7 assists per game, 1.8 steals per game, 0.2 blocks per game, and 2.3 turnovers per game. He shot 46.6% from the field, 31.7% from deep, and 72.9% from the free throw line. In the playoffs, he played 154 games, averaging 35.6 minutes per game. He averaged 14 points per game, 3.7 rebounds per game, 5.3 assists per game, 1.4 steals per game, 0.2 blocks per game, and 1.9 turnovers per game. He shot 44.1% from the field, 31.5% from deep, and 70.6% from the free throw line. In the NBA Finals, he played 17 games, averaging 33.8 minutes per game. He averaged 8.5 points per game, 3.8 rebounds per game, 4.5 assists per game, 1.2 steals per game, and 0.1 blocks per game, and 1.6 turnovers per game. He shot 40.9% from the field, 27.3% from deep, and 67.7% from the free throw line. In the history of the NBA, there have been many great defenders, players who can clamp down on an opposing player and make their night the longest of their life. There's also been a long line of trash talkers, players who use their extensive vocabulary to get under the opponent's skin. Generally speaking, if a player is a lockdown defender, they usually struggle on the offensive end. And if a player is known for talking junk to their opponent all night long, they generally lack something in the skills department to beat them in the game at hand. That is, unless you are talking about the glove, Gary Payton. By the time his career came to an end, Payton was regarded as the best defensive point guard of all time and arguably the biggest trash talker the league had seen. A product of Oregon State University, Payton entered the league as the second overall pick of the 1990 NBA draft behind Derek Coleman. While a correct decision at the time, the redraft of this year would see Payton as the number 1 selection by quite a margin, as he would clearly finish his career as the best of his class. A starter from the moment he joined the league, Payton would show signs early that his ability defensively would be the key to his career success, averaging 2 steals a contest while offering up 6.4 assists per game on a Seattle Supersonics team that featured Eddie Johnson, Benoit Benjamin, and a growing athletic star, Shawn Kemp. Helping the Sonics to a 41-41 record and playing all 82 games, they'd be bundled out of the playoffs by the Portland Trail Blazers, led by Clyde Drexler. Over the next 2 seasons, Payton would show again that his durability and defensive prowess would be the keys to the Sonics' success moving forward. Improving on the offensive end both in production and efficiency, all while maintaining his tenacity on defense, Payton by the end of 1992-93 had helped Seattle to the Western Conference Finals, where they fell just 1 game short of the NBA Finals thanks to Charles Barkley and the Phoenix Suns. This was key to Payton taking yet another step forward come his senior season. earning the first of his 11 career All-Star selections, the first of his 9 All-NBA selections, as well as the first of his 9 consecutive All-Defensive First-Team honours. Seattle was cruising as the best team in the NBA before a stunning loss to the Denver Nuggets in the first round after a 2-0 series lead in a best-of-5 series saw them as the first number 1 seed ever to be eliminated by an 8th seed in the first round of the playoffs. With another tough loss coming in the playoffs of 1995 against a Laker team that finished 9 games back from them, Seattle was at a crossroads. Gary Payton and Shawn Kemp, the franchise had found a tandem on both ends that were as good as any in the league, but couldn't quite take the next step. In Detlef Schrempf, they had arguably the best sixth man of the decade, but weren't able to transition their first and second unit successfully in big moments. One of the 3 men would have to stand up. That man was Gary Payton. In one of the best two-way performances by a point guard in league history, Gary Payton 1995-96 is overshadowed by 2 things: 72-10 Chicago Bulls and Michael Jordan returning to the top of the NBA. Payton's season was one to remember. Leading the league in steals, Payton would finish second in scoring for the Sonics behind Kemp, while being the team's leading facilitator to be named as the 1995-96 Defensive Player of the Year. Until Marcus Smart won the award for the 2021-22 season, Payton was the last guard to win Defensive Player of the Year honours. This proved to be the extra effort required for the Sonics, who made their last NBA Finals appearance as a franchise that season. Down 3-0 to that Bulls team, with Michael Jordan continuing to have his way in one of the best individual seasons of all time, Payton pleaded with head coach George Karl to let him defend Michael. Despite eventually losing the series in 6 games, Seattle would go 2-1 in the final 3 games that Payton switched to Jordan. For some comparison, MJ in the first 3 games of the series averaged a rounded 31 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists and 2 steals a game on 46% shooting from the field and 50% shooting from deep. In the final 3 games, Jordan averaged 24 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists and 1 steal a game on 37% shooting from the field and 11% shooting from deep. With a comparison like that, it does make you wonder, what if Gary Payton had matched up on Michael Jordan for all 6 games of the 1996 NBA Finals? This would be the only time that Seattle would reach the championship round in Payton's career. While a third-place MVP finish in 1997-98 proved to be the second best season of his career, and his offensive numbers following the departure of Shawn Kemp would rise, Payton would be traded to Milwaukee before the deadline of the 2002-03 season. By 2003-04, he would be next to Shaquille O'Neal, Kobe Bryant and Karl Malone for that now infamous title tilt that ended the Shaq-Kobe Lakers for a single season in Boston. Just as things looked over for the glove, he would join the Miami Heat alongside Dwayne Wade and Shaquille O'Neal as the veteran off the bench, as the Heat would deliver the championship ring that Payton so richly deserved. He would return for one more year in 2006-07 before calling time on one of the best defensive careers ever. Gary Payton is a member of the Basketball Hall of Fame and was selected to the NBA's 75th anniversary team.